Here is the story of Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church and its founder, Rachael Patterson. This story is told by Rachael Patterson, widow of the late Reverend Rachael Patterson. They both were raised with strong Christian values and come from a small town called Ackerman, Mississippi. After almost 10 years of marriage, Rachael Patterson decided that he wanted a different life for his family. In the 1950s, he relocated his family to Waterloo, Iowa, and worked at John Deere Company. As devoted Christians, they quickly searched for a spiritual home and joined a local church. Several years later, Rachael Patterson was called into preaching, and he built Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church in Waterloo. Ms. Patterson tells of the challenges and the joy that came with building the church and watching it grow. When and where were you born?
I born in Mississippi.
Mississippi?
1919.
Where at in Mississippi?
Ackerman.
Ackerman? Okay, all right. What was life like for you in Mississippi as a young girl coming up in Ackerman?
What was life like?
Yeah, what was it like? Did you guys live on a farm or did you live in the city?
We lived on a farm.
Okay.
My father's farm.
Ah.
My grandparents passed, and my father, my uncle, two of my uncles, they divided the land between the three.
Ah, okay, all right.
And doing that, we didn't have a lot of land.
Mm-hmm.
But we rented land from other people. Some white people lived pretty close to us, and we rented land from them.
Okay, all right.
Because we had a big family. And that's what we did, we farmed. I know how my parents did all the stuff around the house. We didn't have to buy nothing much because we canned and cooked and done all this stuff, raised beefs and chickens and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I just come up feeling good. I've been good all my life. I've had what I needed all my life. So it's been really great.
Okay. He would clearly leave his mark on you, clearly.
Absolutely.
In the way of how you would go on, because I know eventually you would marry a pastor, a man who would become a pastor,
right.
Who would be in the ministry, get his own church, things like that, similar to your father. Tell me, when you met, where you met, when you met, that first day, if you can remember, what was it like? What happened?
He just kept coming around, and everybody said, "That's a good boy. That's a good boy," And I got to thinking, So we just hooked up from that.
Eventually you gave in to his determination.
Yeah.
Huh? He was determined.
Yeah, he was determined. And he went and picked up my dad from one of his churches. And we was coming back home, and the car had stopped. And we come back home. And of course, he'd asked me to marry him then. That was I done gone way up past this love thing.
Okay.
And so he said, I'd like to, he said, can I ask your father, can I marry you? I said, I don't care what you do. We had kind of got to where we liking each other.
Okay.
It was just one sided once, a while, but we got to liking each other. So he asked him, probably give him a lecture. He said, I'm not giving no yes not yet. He went and asked Mama. Mama just got all, no, you ain't gonna marry that girl. Yeah. No. So I don't know. It worked out. But we did marry.
Good.
63 years of it.
63 years.
That's
wow.
right.
Good. Very good.
Yep.
And tell me, so now here you are. You would get married in Mississippi, and eventually you would make a decision to move to Waterloo. Tell me about that. What happened, and why would you come to Waterloo? Tell me about that.
The reason I come to Waterloo, I had a sister here before I came, and cousins and different things, and they talked about the jobs and all the stuff they had here in Iowa. And he sat down. We talked about it. He said, don't you think we could have a better living way they talk about? So yeah, we did. And we had 4 kids then. So he left. He came here before I did, and got a good job. Had the job the next day. He came and stayed in what I can't think of that. But anyway.
Because he came by train, is that right? He came by train?
He came by train.
Okay.
Yeah, he came by train. And he spent the night in the, what you call it?
Train station?
Yeah, train station.
Okay.
He spent the night in the train station. And that next morning, he got up and went to the Deers.
Okay.
Before he went to my sister. That's where he was going to stay with her until we got a place. So he left the train station, went to Deers, got a job on the spot. Then he came back to my sister's, and that's where he stayed about 3 or 4 weeks before I came.
So what year was it about when you would come? You and the 4 children would leave Mississippi and join your husband in Waterloo. What year was that about?
I think it must have been 44, I think, or 40 something. I can't just remember what now. But it was in the 40s.
Okay, mid-40s, 1940s?
Yeah, he was in the
Okay.
40s, early 40s when we came.
And he would meet a very interesting fellow at the train station. Is that right? What was his name?
I had his name right in my mind. It's, Roosevelt Taylor.
Okay.
And he would never forget him. He always, and Roosevelt don't never forget him.
And so now you're here. You're here in Waterloo. Your husband is working at John Deere. Is
Yeah.
that right? What is he doing there for employment?
What was he doing?
Yes. Or what would he retire as, shall I say? Was he in the foundry? Was he?
Oh, he was out of the foundry before he got there good. They were needing people so bad, and I was glad he got out of there.
Okay.
But I don't forgot what job he had, but he wasn't in the foundry.
Okay. All right.
And but he worked there at this job until he retired.
Tell me about the revelation he would have as far as becoming a pastor himself.
You want to know the revelation of him being called as a preacher?
Called as a preacher. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget one Sunday morning, we was getting ready to go, and our car had stopped on us, broke down, and we'd called the cab to pick us up at Cass Church. And while we were waiting on the cab, I noticed that he was just kind of walking the floor like we was already just kind of waiting on. And I didn't say nothing. He just kept walking the floor, and I didn't say anything. And then just about 15 minutes, I turned around, I heard something, boom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
He threw the Bible on the floor.
Hmm.
And I tell you, that got me. I picked up the Bible, and I said, what in the world is wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? He said, I don't know. The Lord done called me to preach. I said, well, what you throwing the Bible? I don't know. And he said, what do you think? I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm not God. I said, you said God called you. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm not God. And I said, I have no say in that. I said, you said God called you. I didn't call you. And so he picked up the Bible, and by the time the car was there, and we went on to church. He went a whole year, though, when they called, he went a whole year not giving them my answer about, I'm going to do a church. You know, I'm going to start a church and say, Reverend, you need to start a church so we can have somewhere. We ain't got no church home. We just did it. And so about a year passed, and he said, I'll let you know. And then he said, I'm ready. And when he said that, the people began to come all over. And I said, well, you in the church are doing good? I said, I'm in that church, it's doing good. I said, why you? No, we want this. And that's how it got started. How the church started. And so we stayed in our house, and I never forget it. We carried $500 from that house to the storefront.
Okay.
Because we rented a storefront. We rented a storefront.
Okay.
There on Auburn Street. North Barclay. Every day he would go up there and look around. And so then he started telling them, so we need to get a building or something. And this woman was giving up her store. And so we got that building and stayed there until we got where we are now.
There has to be all this energy and excitement. You know, your husband says to you, you know, hey, we're going to build a church.
Yes,
I mean, this is not a small project by any means.
Right. But so, the people, God was in the plan all the way, because the people never backed down. They just doing this. And I tell you, God was in the plan.
What was going through you? Because, I mean, you had to feel some pressure when he said this. You know, what were you thinking at this point in time? He's saying, build a church. What were you thinking of?
Thinking like he was thinking. We can do it.
We can do it. Ah, okay. All right.
We can do it.
Okay.
And not only we can do it, we did it.
You were there to support him through the process.
200%.
The building of the church. You were, in fact, what was your role in that? How did you help him?
He was still working at that time.
Right.
And most of the men at the church, they were still working. Okay. And the women too, a lot of the women. So it was all left up to me. Okay. It was all left up to me, you know, and I was there, Johnny on the spot, every time they moved. I was there, and if something they needed, they called me, you know, the contractor people. Okay,
so the church is up. Okay, you have the mortgage and everything. Things are going really well. Let's talk a little bit about the church, and let's talk about the choir of the church. So, you know, what are your feelings on the choir? What is special about your choir? What makes Pilgrim Baptist Church choir unique or different than any other choir?
The special about Pilgrim Baptist choir, it's the best choir in Waterloo.
Okay.
That's what's special about it. No, I tell you, I love our choir. I love the pianist. She's been there ever since the church been there. She's been there, and she just does a great job, and she can sing too.
Okay.
And that's the important part. You know, you get a pianist that maybe she can play good, but she can't sing. But this girl can sing. She can sing, and I just dearly love the choir. And the male chorus is good too. Okay. But that choir, it's the best. I love it.
Now you have this new church. Okay, you got this new church. How is your husband selling it? Selling it in the sense that he needs, you know, he's recruiting and things like that, or should I say recruiting, is that the right word? He is seeking more members, you know, because the church is bigger. Yeah. And you guys can grow, obviously, because you have more space now.
We recruit people to let them know that God is alive, and they can accept Christ and live, or they can, you know, not. And so this is what 90% of the thing what we do. We try to recruit people in to for their salvation or strengthening the word or whatever. And that's our motto. Now I got some friends that they just want a number.
Okay.
And see, but you know, that's their business. But ours is a little different.
Tell me a little bit about the. I think it's interesting, the style show that you would have. How did your husband get that going?
What we would do, just say like Palace, they get their spring stuff in.
Okay.
A dress store get the spring stuff in or whatever. We get 2 or 3. And we would get them early stuff out for the spring, like for the fall, spring and fall. Mm-hmm. And they'd let us have them, you know. And we would set up like a thing, I mean, advertise it. We advertised it, we having a style show. And you didn't have to be a member of the church to model. You could be in your church if you wanted to model some of our clothes. And we chose the model the men. We chose the model, we chose the model the women. And one time we had the little children, little hats and pocketbooks and stuff like that. But it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And the men enjoyed it, you know. They put on them high-priced suits and strutting around.
Okay.
It was really nice. Of course, we had meals too, you know.
Okay.
They could buy their lunch and dinner or whatever. But I thought it was really nice, but we just kind of weaned away from that. But the style show was good. And some of the men, when they seen that, they bought them. I mean, they didn't buy them for us, but they went downtown and they bought some stuff. And a lot of people, a lot of the church people and a lot of the people in the street, they come in and we made some good money on that.
Okay. A number of other fundraisers that you would have to help support the church to continue to spread your message. I also know you have like a spring banquet. You have a spring banquet, and the theme of that was really interesting to me. It was focused on community building. Mm-hmm. It was one of your spring banquets. That was one of the themes.
Yeah, well, we had several.
I know you have people like Chief Bernie Kearson come in and speak and stuff like that. Other leaders in the community like Lou Porter, Jimmy Porter, stuff like that.
We gonna have the mayor here tonight, and so y'all get ready. We gonna have a mayor here, and the people really turn out just to hear them, and we'd make good money because you know, and we got speakers and speak better than they can. You know, some of them. But we. This is what you got to do. You got to get somebody that's going to draw the people in, and that's what we did.
What was your primary goal? If we talk about community building, tell me a little bit about why community building. What did the church feel its role was towards the community? Focus
on the realness of Christianity.
Okay.
We focus on that was our main focus, but like we said, we would do these banquets and all these kind of things to have people to come in and they pay, you know, so much for a meal.
Okay.
They get the meal, and many times we've had people to join, not in the meeting, but they'd come back that Sunday and join. You know, and stuff like that. And some of them was really sinners that had never accepted God, and that was great. That was really great. So that was one of the major things what we did in having these banquets and stuff like that.
Okay, good. Now you have Women's Day. 'Cause I'm thinking about that. What is that, Women's Day, and what do you do? What do you do on that particular day? Why is it special?
It is all women.
Okay.
We don't have women preacher, but we have a speaker, a lady come and speak, whatever, you know, she write a theme or whatever. We use our theme and talk from the theme. But the main thing is everything that day would be done by women. And that's why we call it the Women's Day.
Okay. Give me a few examples, like one or two examples of what you guys did that the men could not do or were relieved of their duties of doing, should I say?
Well, let's say, for instance, we don't have no deacon women.
Okay.
The deacon women would function in the deacon's stead. Whatever the deacons was required to do on each Sunday, the women would do that, as if they were the deacons.
Okay.
And so that's the only thing. It's no big major thing.
Okay.
It's just switching places for a while. And so this is what we did. We just, if the deacons would do the devotion, the men, well, that Sunday they wouldn't do the devotion. It would be the women doing the devotion, all the devotion. And whatever everything but the preaching.
Okay.
The women did it, everything. So, and this is why they call it the Women's Day.
On your 50th anniversary, you and your husband would appropriately have the celebration at the church. Describe that day, you know, what it was like and what kind of happened. You know, the 50th anniversary, you know, you have you guys have accomplished a lot at this point. So you have a lot to be proud for. You have the church before you, beautiful church. And then you have 50 years that you've been together, married. What describe your emotions that day? What was it like?
Well, they recognized us with so many plaques and different stuff like that, you know. And I don't know. Just, I don't know. I was in it, and so they just recognized us, and 50 years. But now, it's
Piece of cake, huh?
I don't know. I was thinking back.
Piece of cake.
Yeah.
You make it look so easy, make it sound so easy. That's a very difficult thing nowadays.
50, yeah.
Tell me a little about the time capsule. I think this is interesting. It's the first time I have ever seen that done before. I was going through your photographs, and you have this event where they're going to the church, and there's a group of men. Explain that to me. Explain that. Tell me about that day. What was going on?
We had several men. We had several men from different churches. They would cut a block out of the church.
Okay.
I think when they left this church, when they finished this church, I'm not sure. I think they left that without it being sealed. They left some blocks, but they had it fitted in there, but I don't think it was sealed.
Okay.
Because it's waiting on this major thing. And what they do, they took all of our names, my husband and mine, and all the children's names, and some sayings from each one, something they were saying, each one.
Nice. Yeah.
And I don't know how the deacons, we was out there, I don't know how they did it, but they'd pass a piece to every different one of the deacons to put in the vault, whatever it was. And they put all that stuff just about the family and my husband and I, and how the church got started and all that. All of that's in that open place there. All that's in there. And when they put all of that in there, they had ceremony and all that stuff over. And they sealed that, put that back in there and put the seal on the back, put all that, and you couldn't tell that ever been a brick out of there. You wouldn't know the place. If you see that number there, you could see that number. It's out there, you could see that number, and you would know there's something there. But that's what it was. And they had service. They started outside, then they come on inside.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good concept. It's very important. I like it.
Well, but they did it. All the men, and they had on the white aprons and stuff. I don't know what all that was for, but they had on the aprons. And it was a beautiful ceremony.
It's always a joyous occasion when you take on an expense, such as a church.
Yes.
$50,000+. That's a lot of money. And, eventually, that day would come where it's paid off.
Yes.
And you would, and your church would get to that point. You would call it the mortgage burning.
That's what we had.
An event, a ceremony. Describe that, the emotions. Describe that day. What was it like, and what did you guys do to celebrate that goal, that accomplishment?
Most glorious day. Most glorious day. We had people from out of town. We had a couple of churches from out of town, and Des Moines and Illinois, we had them. And I tell you, this, just to burn the mortgage on 411 Auburn, where we lived, that's where we lived. We marched from there here. You know where Auburn Street is in Waterloo?
Yeah, you marched from there to, when you say here, what, to the church?
I mean to the church, I say
okay,
here.
Go ahead.
I'm like I'm in church.
Yeah, I know that.
But yeah, from here to the church, we burnt the mortgage out here. We didn't burn the mortgage, we burnt the mortgage out here. But that is the most glorious time that you could have. You think about this building, you put this building up, and we paying on this building, we paying on this building, and we paying on this building. And then there's a day coming that we can pay it off. And when we paid the bill off and didn't have the bill of the church, that's a joy. That's a beautiful day when you can have that clean, clear, we don't want no more. And it was just grand. We burned the mortgage, and we just had such a glorious time just thinking about we don't owe nothing on this building. Nothing on this building. It just, oh, and sometimes we'd pay insurance for two years. I think we'd pay insurance on 2 years insurance, and that for advance.
He has built the church. His leadership, his presence was there. He clearly demonstrates that he is a pastor, a preacher who can lead his congregation.
Right.
Yeah, he can lead his congregation. He would die. He would pass. He would pass from natural causes. Okay, and now when the church would suffer a loss like that, that transition is always difficult. It was always difficult.
Yeah.
With his power and his guidance, leading the people, they have a strong sense of direction,
Right.
and they have somebody they can depend on. Describe, that process, the process of finding or identifying another leader, another pastor of the church. How long would that take to do that, and who would eventually take over?
Mm-hmm. But we got a nice young guy. He's real nice. He's young. And another thing, he'll listen. He know I'm 200 years old, and he'll listen to me.
He knows you're 200 years. Okay.
Yeah. So he's a real nice guy. Good preacher.
What's his name?
Good preacher.
What's his name?
Reverend Caldwell.
Okay.
And I said, had you just looked at that, how God was in the plan? I said, he wasn't supposed to go down the Union. I said, I don't care what man said, but he wasn't supposed to go down the Union. And so he came here, and I said, would you like to? He said, yeah, I'd like to preach. I said, well, I heard the deacons talking about you. I said, now, if you like it, you tell them you like here. So he talked to him, and so a little later on they was talking about voting for a pastor. And someone said, how many hats in the ring? So I don't know. Well, I think it's 3 hats in the ring. Mm-hmm. And he was standing up there looking. I went up there to him. I act like his mama.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I went there. I said, listen, is your hat in the ring? No, ma'am. I said, get that hat in the ring. Mm-hmm. She put it in there. Mm-hmm. There he is.
And he's here today. We have Reverend Caldwell. He's running the church now.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Do a good job, too.
Excellent.
Good job.
Now, let's talk a little about yourself. Now here you are, strong in the church, still active in the church.
Yep.
Very, very strong presence in the church.
Yep.
You're in your golden years. What are you doing now? What are you doing? I know you're with the Mother Board. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you're doing with them now?
Well, we visit the sick and shut in and stuff like that. Okay. We go and check on people and stuff like that, and then we have our class. Okay. And stuff like that. This is what we do. We go to the hospital, we go to the homes or whatnot, and now we're splitting up the group. 3 go here, 3 go here, if we got that many shut-in people to visit, stuff like that. It's just something that we know we love you, and this is what we do. We just go around to.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story with me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure sitting here talking to you.
God bless you too.
All right.